What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to Collectors Gone Digital. My name's Josh, and on today's episode, we are going to be recapping Dan's recent VeVeVerse interview, and I've recapped it down into 18 different points. So today's going to be a long one. We are also going to be covering the trailer and my overall thoughts to round the video off. So I'm not going to be wasting any time with today's intro. Grab your favorite drink, grab your favorite snack, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So they start the interview off with a very interesting question, and I liked hearing it because it's one we haven't heard a team member discuss or answer before, at least to my knowledge, and that's what is their daily routine. So Dan says he starts his day off with a triple shot, and that might explain why he's constantly blinking in all of his interviews. Poor man's trying to stay awake. But he says from 8 a.m. to noon, he's meeting with people in Western time zones, North America, South America, places like that. And then from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., he's meeting with his New Zealand team. I'm assuming that's his VeVe team. And then from 5 p.m. onwards, he's meeting with Eastern engineers. A lot of these meetings involve marketing, production, engineering, operations, and then more. And then Dan rounded his answer off by saying he spends moments during the week on what is the future of VeVe. And I liked hearing this because, well, I mean, it's essential in order for them to stay ahead of the curve. Moving on, he talks a little bit about his responsibilities and how they've shifted since he started the company with David. So he says that in the early days of VeVe, things were very hands-on. In fact, Dan actually handled the UI design, copy, the 3D assets, which was surprising for me to hear, and then all the posting and loading content onto the app. He says since then, many people have been hired to handle a lot of these tasks, and as a result, he's now more involved with meetings. Now, in terms of lead times, Dan talks a little bit about how long the process can take before a collectible drops on the platform. This was actually his answer to the question, what is something that not many people know about VeVe? Now, Dan says that the process leading up to the drop can actually take 8 to 12 months, and that this time will actually extend longer the more variables involved. So if the collectible is animated, or if it has audio or special effects, these things will actually extend the time. So he's then asked how he prioritizes tasks, and his answer here falls in line with something we discussed before. So he says that lots of tasks are being worked on congruently by different teams. We know this. And because of this, Dan sticks to his daily responsibilities while essentially playing whack-a-mole with any issues that arise. So in the past, we've talked about when you first start a business, you are managing and you are running every single little part of that business, okay? As you scale that business and you bring more people on board, some of those tasks get delegated, and you now go from running every single little part to managing the people running every single little part. That is the stage that David and Dan are in right now. Dan even says that beforehand, things were a lot more hands-on. Now he's involved a lot more on the meeting side of things because people have been delegated to handle those tasks.
So because we didn't really know what the response was or what the uptake would be, we built the first iteration of the app to grow from 0 to 50,000 users in, over the course of 12 months. But then after we launched a couple of months in, obviously that was right in the hype of the, of the NFT bubble coming up, and it just went absolutely crazy. Hundreds of thousands of users. So the app would break, the drop system would fail because there was just too many users. So I would always, because the drops in New Zealand were like 3 a.m. So I would always wake up in the morning on so I think we did it on, we always did our drops on Friday back then, so it was only once a week. And I'd wake up in the morning on Saturday, look at my phone and see how many messages I had from the developers to know whether I needed to, either I could sleep in or whether I needed to get up straight away and get with it. So that was quite challenging. But these are kind of good problems.
Now, in terms of some VeVe challenges, we did just talk about this, but from David's perspective, this time we get it from Dan. He said that back in the day, one of the hardest challenges was helping licensors understand that it's new. Yes, it's an untested market, but despite these things, they should still trust David and Dan. Now, this was actually prior to them having the app, so they had nothing to show potential clients. Dan says they had a PowerPoint presentation with mock-ups for each of their meetings. And he doesn't actually say this in this video, but we do know that in between their meetings, David and Dan would actually alter these slides in their car. And then he rounds things off by saying that sometimes it took 10 to 15 different tries just to get their feet in the door with certain brands. Now, in terms of the VeVeVerse Beta, Dan says that they've been gathering lots of feedback from testers. No major issues have been reported up until this point. They're currently making small refinements to improve the overall user experience. And the example that he uses here is making improvements to permissions that you can toggle on and off. He says that the main delay is from importing assets. So each collectible has multiple different textures. They're going to have animations, some of them, right? Some have music. And every single collectible requires a custom script in order to be imported into the VeVeVerse. So if you understand just that single point, it makes it easier to be patient with regards to something like this. He also says that lots of back and forth work are being done with custom shaders. And really good news here in this, they are down to their last 30 or 40 assets to import inside.
You know, my expectation for the VeVeVerse, because I think, you know, most people will understand that, you know, when you enter your home space, you've got like a building and a sort of like a platform area. And my expectation was, you know, people would use that, they would go inside the building, they would set up their collectibles, put their artwork up on the wall, maybe put some stuff on the outside. But what people are creating is just way beyond my expectation. Like entire worlds, like fantasy lands, themed experiences. It's actually insane, like what some of these guys are producing at the moment. And, you know, for me, at first I was like, oh, well, that's, you know, kind of different to what I expected. But it made me realize that, you know, the VeVeVerse really goes beyond just a showroom. I mean, it is your own personal 3D space in the metaverse that you customize, you know, to your heart's content, whether you want an all Batman theme or all Marvel theme, or, you know, or you want to create a castle. So it's been really exciting to watch what the beta testers have been doing.
So moving on, they talk about loading times and specifically something called LOD, or level of detail. Now, apparently this has not been implemented on the mobile vault, which is one of the reasons why our phones will lag so bad. It's not just the only reason. This is one of the contributing factors. But Dan says that this will be one of the solutions for them to battle high computing requirements. So for those that don't know, what happens with LOD is that the resolution of the object, right, let's say a collectible in this case, will decrease the further you move away from it. I'm totally okay with this. I'm nearsighted. So hey, things are just becoming more realistic for me because they get blurrier the further I get away from them anyways. Next up, Dan was asked if the goal is still Ready Player One. And long story short, yes. He says that the book and movie has been inspirational to him. And then this is actually where he goes off into a little side note here. He says that him and David had to fight really hard in the early days to get licensors on the same platform. So we've discussed in the past how it's awesome how they have brands like Marvel and DC. Well, this is the reason why. They fought for it. They said that people want all their collectibles on one shelf. And their biggest argument, which I absolutely loved hearing, was that licensors don't care if we do this at home, so why would they care if we do it in a virtual space? Dan said that, and I just picture like a conference room of people wearing suits, looking at each other around the room, like nodding at each other, being like, you know what? That's true. Next up, they talk about Unreal Engine, and this is something that I'm very excited for. So for those that don't know, the VeVeVerse is compatible with both Unity and Unreal Engine. However, the original version is going to be released with Unity only. The Unreal version is going to be rolled out next year. Dan did say January, but I'd probably push that back a few months. What's important for the team here is that they build something that's accessible to the widest range of users. And the thing that'll happen is that when they release the Unreal Engine version, you're going to have the option of either using Unity or Unreal Engine. But if you use Unreal Engine, it is going to require higher computing power. So you are going to need a higher level gaming PC. We're talking about a platform that can give you almost photorealistic results. That requires power. Now, there was a lot of mixed feelings after the trailer video, and one large argument that I saw was with regards to the graphics. Guys, you have no idea what Unreal Engine is going to do if you're complaining about the graphics right now. That's all I got to say.
Yes, we already can port to Unity and Unreal. Unreal looks unreal. I mean, just the level of quality. I mean, yeah, I mean, for anyone who's seen the comparatives between, Unity and Unreal Engine, I mean, Unreal Engine is almost photorealistic. So we can already port to both. Like I use both. The challenge with Unreal is that you need a very, very high spec computer to run, at the highest quality.
Moving on, we got a very interesting point here, and that is streaming. More specifically, streaming the VeVeVerse.
The other key technology that we're working on is the streaming feature. And so what that basically means is that, in our server clouds, we'll basically just have epic gaming machines that can render your home space, all using Unreal at the highest possible quality. And then it's just going to stream to your phone, your tablet, your TV, your desktop, in the same way that you watch Netflix. There's been a couple of game companies that have tried to do this. There was the Google one, I think it was called Stadia, I think it was called.
Yep.
And they were okay, but the challenge with playing a game is that your ping has to be so low, because if you're sniping someone, it has to be extremely accurate. So that was one of the major challenges they had. But with the VeVeVerse, it's more of a creator environment, a social environment. There's not that need to be pinpoint accuracy down to the millisecond. So yeah, we're very, very confident that this is going to be the way to move ahead. In fact, we already have the streaming set up and running, but it's, right now it's still a very expensive technology. So
this is a feature the team is looking to release in the future, next year, I think they actually said. All you're going to need is a reasonable internet connection, and regardless of what device you are using, you will be able to access your home space, other people's home spaces, events, parties, whatever you like in the VeVeVerse. So it is going to work in a similar way to how platforms like Netflix work to stream movies. And the long-term vision here is to be able to share a link on your social media profile where anybody can click on that link and visit your home space or wherever it links to. This is very important because it creates low barriers to entry. Moving on, they talk about gaming and scripting. So there are going to be limitations depending on the piece that you're using with regards to the scripting feature. But Dan uses an example of having a vehicle as a ticket to enter a racing world. So then you can enter that world, drive around, and then enter different racing events. That would be an example of gamification. But with regards to the scripting feature, he says that there is potential to create a small game. So that right there tells me it's quite flexible. On top of that, there are going to be basic scripts available, like rotating, bouncing, or moving your own collectibles. One question that I have now is going back to the VeVe 500 video and also just seeing scenes in that video like the one in outer space. I have a feeling that video was created in the VeVeVerse, or at least parts of it. It would definitely explain how these vehicles were moving, and then why Metaverse couldn't tell me exactly how he made them move to begin with.
The VeVeVerse for me, I mean, what my vision for it is that it is a space where you can bring anything you own in. I don't want it to be exclusive to VeVe. I would love it if you could connect your MetaMask wallet and you could bring in, all of your, any 2D sort of JPEG images in, and then maybe you could put a frame on it, or say, for example, with McFarlane, the 3D assets that they have could potentially be brought in. I mean, I think that would be the ultimate vision, because right now, it just provides another extra layer of what you can do with that stuff. And it's like, I don't want to have a room for just my VeVe stuff. Like I said earlier, I want to be able to bring it all in. So that's the ultimate goal. I mean, I can't say we're in discussions or anything like that with these companies, and there's obviously going to be technology barriers and format barriers, because we have very, very specific formats and file sizes and limits, etc., for the VeVeVerse. So there's like a technology hurdle there. But my hope is that as the VeVeVerse grows and it expands, it does become a central point where people can bring anything in, and maybe that might inspire other people who are creating NFTs, whether it's a brand or an artist, to produce that item in 3D, because they know there is an audience out there who wants to bring it into this 3D space and enjoy it in that way, rather than just in a wallet.
Next up, they talk a little bit about MCP points. So once the waitlist is fixed, there are going to be several cool things that the team can implement. Dan says that the system has been built in a way where they can actually internally add plugins to alter the drop experience. He actually gives several examples here. So using points to increase your priority on the waitlist, having a specific collectible or set in your collection can actually give you an advantage on drop. And then he also says that the drop can be gated by rank or level. This is awesome to hear, but I also can't help but have one thing come to mind. And that is, we talk a lot about keeping things simple and keeping the barriers to entry very low. I just hope that they don't complicate or overcomplicate this part, where barriers to entry are very low, the platform is very easy to use, and then all of a sudden people are very confused about what these points mean and what that rank means and what that level means. Kind of similar to how they actually merged the MCP and OUP because they realized how it was too complicated. So if the team is watching this, I just hope that's something you guys are considering. Now, with regards to the token, they do talk a little bit about it, as well as the team working behind it. And they say that they typically have 3 features being developed at any one time. It's all about balance and resource allocation. So with regards to the people saying that they aren't working hard enough on this side of things, what it comes down to is how best do they spend their time and their money. If they spend too much time on the crypto side of things and that takes away from, what they're doing with drops, then Dan says that at the end of the day, if we're not really, focused on the drops enough, then having a token to back the platform doesn't really matter. And that does make sense. But for anyone who is concerned with this side of things, Dan does reassure people by saying that the OUP is still their planned roadmap. Now they talk a little bit about MCP transfers. The transfers were originally disabled due to black market activity. We know this. Dan says that him and Mitch have actually determined several options for the transfer feature to be turned back on. So he says that it will likely be based on your rank. Keyword there is likely, so this is not set in stone yet. And he says the higher your rank, the more you're going to be able to transfer. And then he also says that the fees associated with this transfer will likely be based on the floor price at that given time. Again, emphasis on likely. Now, with regards to transfers, they also move into offers and DMs as a temporary alternative to making offers. So Dan says that making offers are going to be part of the trade feature. And he gives the example that, if you're looking for a specific mint number that isn't listed in the market, you're going to be able to search it and then start a dialogue with the holder of that piece. Options to accept or decline the offer are also going to be included. Now, with regards to DMs, Dan says the DMs were never turned on to begin with because of the amount of scams in the early days. Now things like KYC have been implemented. But he says that if they were to introduce the feature, it will likely be part of the trading system. They move on to talk a little bit about marketing, and they say that influencer marketing is actually a big part of VeVe's plan for 2024. He says that if they were to pour millions of dollars into marketing, how well will their conversions be considering the current market sentiment? Thank you, Dan, for saying that. Because for anybody who doesn't understand why this company is under the radar, there's a reason behind it. I think any marketer with any successful experience can see it. It's just not the right time. And last but not least, they round the interview off talking about the largest change coming for 2024. And that is a quote-unquote open VeVe economy. So this will allow people to experience the app without having to log in or create an account. They will only be required to do so in order to complete certain things, like making an offer or buying items in the secondary market or on drop. And talk about keeping barriers to entry low, because this is going to allow people to experience the app without having to overcome any sign-up barriers. They're not going to have to input any of their information or anything like that. They're going to get to see a Spider-Man or a Superman before any of it. All right, so that was the recent trailer. It was just unveiled to the community, and my oh my, we had a lot of mixed feelings. So I had some people DM me asking me what my thoughts were. I do want to keep my talking points relatively short here because I do want to dedicate a full episode to break the video down in depth, as well as I believe there's 2 other parts that are coming. But all in all, guys, to make a longer story short, you know, I'm very pleased with what I saw. I'm not, you know, ecstatic or anything like that, because I must say that it's very much in line with what I expected. You know, I have got a couple messages from people inside the beta saying that my VeVeVerse videos are quite on point with what we can and can't do inside. So that, coupled with the fact that I got former gaming experience and in a similar space as well with the whole virtual building, you know, I can see it really, really well. Now, one thing that did surprise me quite a bit actually was seeing the vehicles moving and the glider and stuff like that in the air. I wasn't necessarily expecting that type of stuff right away, so I am very pleased to see it. But in terms of the people, you know, making comments about how, oh, it doesn't look good enough and this and that, I think what people really need to consider here is the fact that this is a space built by community members for the community, right? Like, this isn't, and this isn't, you know, taking shots at Mr. Falcon or Tails or anything like that. We're talking about 2 individuals that are no different from me and you. So I think a lot of people are looking at them and treating them like there's some professional vault builder with some long, successful track record behind them. And the reality is that they've been here just as long as, you know, a lot of other people. So that needs to be considered. Not to mention they've been in the VeVeVerse a fraction of the time that they've actually been involved with VeVe. Like, there's a lot of explanations behind the points that are being raised in the community. So, you know, it's a good thing to raise them, but, you know, it's also important to stay grounded and look at the situation from a logical standpoint. And just going back to my previous point about the whole Unreal Engine rollout, you know, with regards to some of the comments people are making now, I know for a fact that Unreal Engine is going to blow people away. Speaking of that, Travel Legends, I think, he posted some videos of him inside Cavernous using the Unreal Engine plugin. And I'm telling you, you know, go check out his page. I'll link him down below. It gives you a good idea of what you can expect in the coming months. Ladies and gents, that's going to conclude today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. That's going to be 18 points from Dan's VeVeVerse interview. My oh my, that was a lot of information. I did mention we are going to be doing a more in-depth episode talking about these VeVeVerse videos. And then I am also going to be doing a recap video on the interview that David did on Crypto Rain, I believe the channel is called. So if you guys are waiting for a recap on that one, make sure to tune in next week. But if you enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for our next, I'll catch you then.